Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to talk about the IELTS speaking test. I'm going to give some tips about it, and I'm going to provide a sample of the different parts of the speaking test and give you possible answers. Okay, so the IELTS speaking test has three parts. Part 1 lasts 4 to 5 minutes. This is the easiest part. The examiner here asks common personal questions. He or she might ask you about your dislikes and likes and personal interests and hobbies regarding issues such as the weather, so what kind of weather you like, the food, different activities, home. He might ask you about the family and or your lifestyle that you prefer. Okay, so in the second part of this test, which lasts 3 to 4 minutes, you're given a card that has a list of questions about one topic, and you are expected to present a short talk of 1 to 2 minutes long in length about a general topic of interest. You might be asked follow-up questions. In this question, you'll be giving an opinion or recounting a personal experience, possibly both. You might be asked about a person you admire and what makes this person a great person, a party that you went to, and why you like that party and details about the party, a place you like, something that can improve your college, your work, or your city, and why. So again, here you are asked to present an opinion and possibly recount a personal experience, and you have to talk for 1 to 2 minutes, as many students find this to be the most difficult part because they have to keep speaking for 1 or 2 minutes and give interesting details and make an interesting point. The third part lasts 4 to 5 minutes. Now here the examiner asks more specific and conceptual questions. Now what does that, about the topic covered in part 2, what does that mean? That means that you will be asked to give more, possibly more details, and also express an opinion about an abstract issue related to this. So for example, if you're asked about a party in part 2, here you might be asked to talk about the different national celebrations that you have in your country, and then you might be asked an abstract question about the importance of national celebrations. Okay, and if you're asked to talk about something that would improve college in part 2, here you might be asked to talk about specific teaching methods and the advantages and disadvantages of these teaching methods. Okay, so that's a breakdown of the different parts of the IELTS speaking test. Again, it has 3 parts. First part, common personal questions, lasts 4 to 5 minutes. Second part, you're given a card and you with a list of questions related to one topic, you give an opinion or recount a personal experience, or both. And finally, in part 3, it's a kind of more of a dialogue, but you do most of the talking. A list of questions related to the question you answered in part 2 that tend to either ask for more details or ask you to give a general opinion. Okay, so the first part includes personal questions about likes and dislikes and things of this sort. Okay, so you might be asked about the weather. In this case, the questions might be something like this. Have you ever been in very cold weather? When? How often is weather cold where you come from? Are some parts of your country colder than others? Would you prefer to live in a hot place or a cold place, and why? When you answer questions like these in the part 1 of the IELTS speaking test, you need to make sure you understand the question clearly. You can certainly ask the examiner to repeat the question if you don't. You need to avoid answers that are too short or too long, and I'll give examples of that in a minute. You need to try to give interesting details. That will certainly impress the examiner and help raise your score. And when you present your preferences, you need to try to make a strong case for it. Finally, you need to avoid overgeneralizing. If you do, you will definitely sound unreasonable. Okay, so let's give an example of possible answers. Answers that are too short, too long, and just the right amount of length or detail for some of these questions. First question, have you ever been in very cold weather and when? Okay, now the worst answer you could give is something like yes and last winter. This is certainly too short. On the other hand, you're not supposed to start giving a lecture about cold weather in your country and then mention a time when there was very cold weather and then tell a story about what happened during that time. So you need your answer to be of reasonable length, not too short, neither too long. Okay, so here you might say something like, yes, I have, and it was really cold. It actually snowed for about a whole week, and the temperatures were below freezing by more than a few degrees. And this was last winter. I would say it was in January, the first half of January. Okay, so this is a reasonable length answer. You didn't just say yes, right? You talked about how cold it was, right? And what the cold weather was accompanied by. And when you said when, you gave a little bit more details, like what month it was. So this is quite reasonable. Next question, how often is weather cold where you come from? Again, an answer that will probably be too short is something like not very often, or quite often, or all the time, right? All of these are too short. A more reasonable answer will be something like, well, we get really cold weather every other year, I would say, or something like that, right? It's unusual to have 2 years in a row that are very, very cold. But we do have 4 seasons. They're usually moderate. Okay, so that's a more reasonable answer. Are some parts of your country colder than others? Again, a bad answer would be yes. Okay, a more reasonable answer would be something like certainly. And I would say the parts that are higher in general, where there are mountain ranges, tend to be higher. And there are areas like this in the west of the country, some parts of the south of the country, and even some parts of the north are also colder, maybe also because they lie at higher altitudes. The rest of the country is less cold. Okay, again, this is an interesting answer. It shows your use of vocabulary. It's reasonably detailed and gives interesting facts about your country. Would you prefer to live in a hot place or a cold place, and why? Okay, a reasonable answer for this is, I really prefer to live in a cold place. I think the cold can be dealt with by wearing heavy clothes. That's quite easy. While the hot weather really needs more, let's say, more steps to deal with. For example, you need air conditioning, and you can't walk whenever you want. Colder weather is easier to deal with, and you can probably do more activities. Sometimes you can do even more activities, the kind that I like skiing, for example. So that's why I prefer a colder place. Okay, so again, I kind of hesitated a little bit there, but I came back, right? And I still made, I think, a good case. So somebody might say, well, no, hot weather allows you to do more activities. I came back and said, well, the kind I like, which is skiing, for example. Okay, so this is the first part of the IELTS speaking test, and these are some tips that you can follow in dealing with it. Now let's move on to the next part. Part 2 of the test is a bit more difficult for many students. The examiner gives you a card with a list of questions. You have to read these questions and prepare an answer in a minute or two. You write down some notes that you can use when you deliver your answer, and you have a minute or two to deliver your answer. Tips for this part: make sure you understand the question clearly. And this is probably easier here because it's written for you. I would still ask for a clarification if I didn't understand the question well. Make sure you cover all the points, right? There's a card with very detailed points. They want you to talk about all of these. So if you don't, your score is going to suffer. Give interesting and rich details, even if you have to lie. Absolutely. Nobody is going to investigate your answer, right? So try to spice it up a little bit, but stay reasonable, right? And don't overgeneralize. So you don't want to say this competition, for example, in this question, oh, this competition that I participated in was the greatest competition in the world, right? When the examiner may not have even heard about it. Okay, so this is a sample of the kind of question you're asked. Describe a competition in which you participated at work, on TV, or in school. What type of competition was it? How did you learn about it? What did it involve? What prize was given to the winner? Why did you join it, and what happened at the end? Okay, and I'll try to give a reasonably detailed answer for this with some interesting details. Okay, so the competition that I participated in was a competition I did at school while I was doing my MBA program. It actually involved writing a recommendation for a company based on a case study of that company. The recommendation involved the future of this company and what strategic direction it should take. We were split up, our class was split up into groups, and each group worked together to produce a paper and a presentation to present in front of a panel of judges who would advance and filter the groups through 3 stages, and then the final 4 groups of students would present to a highly prestigious group of businessmen who would judge these recommendations and choose the team with the best. I learned about this presentation through the school. They actually informed us via our email that we kind of have to present, to do this, enter this competition as part of our MBA work. The prize was $500 to the winning teams, to be split equally among the students participating in the winning team. Again, I joined it basically because I had to, and unfortunately, we didn't win it. We came quite close. We thought we would win, but another team won, and I think we learned a lot from this competition. We learned what kind of recommendations capture the enthusiasm of business people, so it would certainly help me make an interesting, imagination capturing presentation and recommendation to my boss in my future career. Okay, so that's a sample answer to part 2 to a part 2 question on the IELTS speaking test. Now moving on to part 3. Part 3 involves an extension on the question presented in part 2. You will be asked some quite specific questions and more abstract or theoretical questions. And this is an example. Since part 2 involved competition, the examiner will stay close to that topic and might ask questions like this. Why do some instructors use competitions in class activities? Are prizes for students important, and why? Have schools become more or less competitive since your time, and why? Do sports people get reasonable intensive training? Does the current state of competitiveness benefit or hurt sports stars? Again, you need to understand the questions clearly, give interesting details, give a strong case for your answer, and don't overgeneralize. And of course, diversify your use of language. But I didn't really say that because, if you really give interesting details and try to make a strong point, the use of language is a necessity, right? Effective use of language is necessity. So in all your answers, you need to work on this. Make sure you use appropriate language. Okay, so let's try to answer these questions. The examiner will ask these one by one. You will not be given a card, and you will be presented with the questions one by one. Why do some instructors use competitions in class activities? My answer? Well, I believe that they believe that competitions motivate the students to work hard. And that makes their job easier. They're not, the students would not be working hard just because the teacher is pushing them, but because they want the praise and the recognition within their classes. Okay, next question. Are prizes for students important, and why? Okay, so this is a more abstract question, and now I'm asked to present my own opinion about this, right? Whether I think this is right or wrong, good or bad. And here's my answer. Well, I believe prizes are important for students. They do encourage them to work hard, but I think instructors need to be careful. Some of the prizes have to go for the students individually, while others need to reward students who work together and who contribute to the class as a whole and who help others. So it shouldn't just be me against others. We need to emphasize group work and teamwork in classes too, and we need to also be careful, because if we if we encourage our students to study only to get these prizes, then when we take these prizes away, the students may not work hard. Probably they wouldn't, and therefore we need to be careful. We need also to make sure the students love study for itself. Next, have schools become more or less competitive since your time, and why? Okay, my answer to this is I believe some schools have certainly become, most schools have become more competitive. Others have not changed much. And I think part of the reason for this is just the fact that there are many more students nowadays, and the number of universities and schools have not increased at the same level. And therefore it's becoming harder for people to get admitted and to pass from one year to the next, basically. Okay, so more competitive for that reason. Do sports people get reasonable intensive training? Okay, well, I believe that the intensive training that sports people get is sometimes too hard for them. And they spend a lot of hours training, and they sometimes basically lose their social life. Last question. Does the current state of competitiveness benefit or hurt sports stars? My answer to this is, and you will see that it's kind of related to the question before in this case, but since they asked me about this, then I have to kind of add more. So this seems to be an important point. Okay, so again, the question is, does the current state of competitiveness benefit or hurt the sports stars? My answer to this is, I believe competitiveness is important in sport, but sometimes it gets too hard. Sports people are pushed too hard, and they, as a result, they have to take illegal, sometimes they believe they have to take illegal performance-enhancing drugs, and that hurts their health. And sometimes they take unnecessary risks while performing their sports, relative sports, and they get hurt too doing that. So they jump too hard, or they run too hard, or they practice too hard, and that hurts them. And I think the solution in this case is to really monitor the level of competitiveness in each sport, and make sure it's not going overboard. If you if you watch the news carefully, you'll hear of many cases where competitiveness has really hurt sports people. Okay, and therefore this is a problem that we need to deal with. Okay, so that's my answer. These are my answers to part 3 questions, sample questions for the IELTS speaking test. I hope this video has been helpful for you. See you in future videos. Thank you.